Hey, it's your girl, your favorite paralegal, aka Cassandra Lynn, and welcome to Legal Doc Talk 24/7. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Ooh, so I wanted to touch on the Central Park 5 lawsuit versus Donald Trump or against Donald Trump. A few days ago, they ended up filing a lawsuit against him in regards to the numerous amount of times that Trump has made comments regarding their the situation. If you have not seen Central Park 5, the documentary, you please, I don't know exactly where it's being streamed, but just type it in and I hope that it pops up. This is something that you guys need to go watch, and then you'll definitely understand. These men, young men at the time, were accused of something that they did not do. And then years later, they were exonerated. However, Trump, I don't know what it is with him when it comes to facts. Like, these men have been exonerated. Um, so why do you keep their name in your mouth? That's my only question. Um, I'm not going to get into the whole backstory because the petition does cover a lot of this. So you'll understand who these five individuals are, and you will understand why they are filing this lawsuit against Trump. So let's hop right on into it. So go ahead and make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Okay. And let me get to there we go. All right, so we have Yusuf Salam, Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, Antron Brown, and Corey Wise versus Mr. Donald I'm about to say Day, J. Trump. Yes, the GOP presidential candidate in our 2024 general presidential election. If you have not voted, please go exercise your right to vote. I can't tell you who to vote for, but just know that exercising your right to vote is something that you have the right to do. It's not too late to pull up your ballot, see who's on your ballot, do some research, and just make every vote counts. Every vote counts. If you want to see a change in this country, then you need to go out there and vote. But anywho's, let's get right on into the civil complaint. This case involves a false and defamatory statements made by defendant Donald J. Trump during a presidential debate that took place on September 10th, 2024 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. When I was watching that debate and he made that statement, I immediately ran to Raymond Santana's Instagram because I do follow him on on uh on social media because I was like, oh my God, I know he's gonna go off. I know he's gonna go off. But I am glad that they all kept their composure and they did what they needed to do. People need to realize that you cannot go around making false and defamatory statements that are not true about an individual or individuals. Okay. um this world has gotten too free, and it's all because of the advancement of technology. This here social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever social media platform, people just take one thing and they run with it. All right, now the good thing is you can exercise your right to file a lawsuit against someone regarding a false claim or a defamatory statement. You have to provide proof that it is not true. A lot of things are going to come out. in the remember, and I have not done that, and I need to do that. Soldier Boy's baby mother, Jackie Martinez, I believe, when she filed suit against Blueface, I have her declaration, and I have that on my list to do. But she laid out all the facts. She has all of the videos from social media. She has all of the social media posts. She has everything, and she included that in her declaration. So you have to be careful on making false claims about people on this here internet. All right, so going back, during the debate, defendant Trump made several statements concerning the Central Park Five. The Central Park Five, now also known as the Exonerated Five, are five individuals who, as teenagers, were wrongfully convicted of a series of assaults that occurred in Central Park, New York City on April 19th, 1989. The Central Park Five, or Exonerated Five, is comprised of plaintiffs Yusuf Salam, Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, Antron Brown, and Corey Wise. Plaintiffs were wrongfully convicted of crimes they did not commit when they were between 14 and 16 years old and spent the formative years of their life in prison. In 2002, based on newly discovered DNA evidence and the confession of the true perpetrator, plaintiffs were exonerated. Plaintiffs has spent the last 2 decades attempting to rebuild their lives. At the September 10th, 2024 presidential debate, defendant Trump falsely stated that plaintiffs unalived an individual and pled guilty to the crime. These statements are demonstrably false. They are false. They are false. They are false. They are false. Why do you think that they were exonerated? Plaintiffs never pled guilty to any crime and were subsequently cleared of all wrongdoing. Further, the victims of Central Park assaults were not unalived. So, DNA evidence was discovered and the perpetrator came forth. But yet, Trump continuously, and this is not the first time he has made these remarks, he has continuously stated that these five men unalived an individual, and that is far from the truth. Those are false claims, those are defamatory statements. Plaintiffs have suffered injuries as a result of defendant Trump's false and defamatory statements and bring this lawsuit to obtain redress. Now, this is a breakdown of who each of the five members are, and it kind of sheds a light on what are they doing now. So, plaintiff Yusuf Salam is now 50 years old and is a New York City Council member representing District 9, although he brings suit here only in his personal capacity. Plaintiff Salam is a citizen and resident of the state of New York. All right. Plaintiff Raymond Santana is 50 years old and is an author, a fashion designer, and a civil rights advocate. He lives in Georgia. Kevin Richardson is 50 years old. He is a motivational speaker and a philanthropist. Philanthropist. He resides in New Jersey. Antron Brown. He is formerly known as Antron McCray. He's 50 years old and is retired. He lives in Georgia. And Corey Wise is 52, and he is a civil rights advocate, and he currently resides in the state of New York. And we all know Trump. He is the Republican nominee for president of the United States. You know, the 34 felony convicted felon. Yeah, that person. Um, yeah. Let's get down to the factual allegations. So, the Central Park 5 case, let's kind of shed light on what that case entails or entailed, past tense. On the night of April 19th, 1989, Miss Patricia Melly was assaulted and raped while jogging in Central Park. On the same night, Mr. David Lewis and Mr. John Lognan were assaulted while jogging in a different part of the park. Plaintiffs who were between 14 and 16 years old at the time were taken in for questioning in connection with these crimes. Oh my gosh, if y'all have not seen that movie documentary, y'all need to go see this. Y'all need to go see it. Go see it. Go see it. Plaintiffs would later come to be collectively known as the Central Park Five or the Exonerated Five. While in police custody, plaintiffs were each separately subjected to hours of coercive interrogation under duress with no attorney present and often without a parent or a guardian present. Plaintiffs are initially denied having any knowledge of the Central Park assaults. However, after hours of interrogation, four of the plaintiffs agreed to provide a written and videotaped statements in which they falsely admitted to having been present during those assaults. These are 14 to 16-year-old children. I have a 16-year-old. So I already know if he's staying in a one place for too long, he already ready to go home. 20 minutes is probably enough for him. I barely get him through church. So I can only imagine what they were going through in those interrogation rooms without a parent, without a lawyer, and the police is pounding you. Plaintiff Shalom did not provide a written or videotape statement because his mother intervened during his interrogation. However, the police detectives allegedly took notes of his responses during his hours long interrogation, in which Plaintiff Salon also purportedly admitted to having been seen or present during those assaults. The statements were contradictory, unreliable, and inconsistent with each other and with the objective evidence of the assaults. In fact, plaintiffs were not involved in any assaults in any way, and their statements were the product of coercion and duress. Plaintiffs all recanted their coerced statements shortly after their interrogations. On May 1st, 1989, only 11 days after the horrendous assault on Miss Millie took place, and while public sentiment against these young boys was still high, defendant Trump published a full page advertisement in four New York City newspapers. The advertisement alluded to the assaults in Central Park without specifically identifying the suspects and called for the city of New York to, in quotations, send a message loud and clear to those who would unalive our citizens and terrorize New York. Bring back the death penalty and bring back our police. This man been saying this since 89. A true and correct copy of the advertisement is attached here as Exhibit A. On May 4th, 1989, plaintiffs were indicted and charged with attempted unaliving, rape, sodomy, assault, robbery, SA, and riot. 14 to 16-year-olds. This is what they were charged with and indicted. Plaintiffs pled not guilty on all counts. They would all maintain their innocence throughout the trials and years in prison, even when this later hindered them from obtaining parole and extending their incarcerations. Plaintiffs Salam, Santana, and Brown were tried jointly beginning June 25th, 1990. Oh my God, that's when we was in Canada. After 10 days of deliberation, the jury convicted each of them of assault in connection with the attack on Miss Lewis, assault and robbery in connection with the attack on Mr. Laughlin, assault and rape in connection with the attack on Miss Millie, and of riot. The jury acquitted each of them of attempted unaliving and sodomy. Plaintiffs Richardson and Wise were tried jointly beginning October 22nd, 1990. After 11 days of deliberation, the jury convicted Plaintiff Richardson on all counts. Plaintiff Wise was convicted of assault and SA with respect to the attack on Miss Millie and of riot. He was acquitted of the remaining charges. As the Manhattan District Attorney's Office would later acknowledge in court filings, the people's case at both trials rested almost entirely on the statements made by the defendants during their interrogations. In fact, there were no forensic evidence that linked these five youths to this offense. Plaintiff Wise was sentenced as an adult to 5 to 15 years in prison. The remaining plaintiffs were sentenced as juveniles to 5 to 10 years. My heart, because remember, Corey was older than all of them. He was 16. And oh my God, like I said, I have a 16-year-old, and you're tried as an adult. So that means you went to an adult prison at 16 years old. While in prison in 2022, Plaintiff Wise met the true perpetrator of the attack on Miss Melly, Mattia Reyes, who was incarcerated at the same prison for a series of rapes committed around the same time as the Central Park assaults. After an encounter, Reyes confessed to prison staff that he was the true perpetrator of the assault and rape of Miss Melly. I always say that God works in mysterious ways. Although I'm upset that they tried him as an adult and he went to an adult prison, we don't know the true intentions of certain things, why certain things happen. If Wise was never tried as an adult, he would have never met the true perpetrator. I know it's crazy that it sounds, but just hear me out. If he was never tried as an adult, he would have never met the true perpetrator and they still would be in jail. Following his confession to prison staff, Reyes met with the prosecutors from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and provided detail that only the true perpetrator could know. The police also performed a DNA test that conclusively showed that Reyes was the true perpetrator. Prior DNA tests on the five who were convicted of these crimes were negative in all aspects, or I'm sorry, all respects. Following these revelations, the Manhattan DA's office reopened its investigation into the Central Park assaults. At the conclusion of a thorough reinvestigation, Nancy Ryan, the chief of the trial division of the DA's office, filed an affirmation on behalf of the DA's office recommending that plaintiffs' convictions be vacated and that the indictments be dismissed. Whew, this is crazy. Miss Ryan wrote, the people's case at both trials rested almost entirely on the statements made by the defendants, but a comparison of the statements reveals troubling discrepancies. The account the accounts given by the five defendants differed from one another on the specific details of virtually every major aspect of the crime: who initiated the attack, who knocked the victim down, who undressed her, who struck her, who held her, who raped her, what weapons were used in the course of the assault, and when the sequence of events the attack took place. In many other respects, the defendant's statements were not corroborated by, consistent with, or explanatory of objective, independent evidence. And some of what they said was simply contrary to established fact. Given the unreliability of the statements as well as the newly discovered and incontrovertible proof, control, yeah, incontrovertible truth. Tying Matias Reyes to the assault, the DA's office recommended that the charges relating to the attack on Miss Millie be vacated. I mean, if the statement they spent their time trying to make these charges stick. Like it really didn't make sense, and I don't even know how the jury even came up with um their verdicts. Like something had to be like, hey, doesn't make sense. But I wonder what the jury was like. That's a different story. With respect to the attacks on Mr. Lewis and Miss Laughlin, Miss Ryan stated the trial evidence as to the other charges, like the evidence as to the attack on the female jogger, consisted almost entirely of the defendant's statements. Consequently, there was no significant evidence at trial establishing the defendant's involvement in the other crimes of which they stand convicted that would not have been sustainably and fatally weakened by the newly discovered evidence in this matter. On December 19, 2002, New York Supreme Court Justice Charles J. Tejada vacated plaintiffs' convictions and dismissed the indictments, as the DA's office had recommended. In 2003, plaintiffs brought suit against the city of New York, as they should, for, among other things, false arrests, malicious persecution, and racially motivated conspiracy. The lawsuit settled for 41 million in 2014, with then Mayor De Blasio stating that the statement was a moral obligation to the right to right this injustice. To be honest, I don't even think 41 million was enough. And I ain't never seen a million, but I don't think 41 mil. I don't think no amount of money could, I don't know, right or wrong. It cannot right a wrong. What those children had to endure, what Wise had to endure in an adult prison. So let's talk about the debate on September 10th, 2024, where defendant Trump participated in a presidential debate hosted at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The debate was watched live by more than 67 million people in the United States. The video and transcript of the debate has since been viewed by many others. So one, you can't come and say you ain't say that because we got the transcript. During the segment of the debate dedicated to race and politics in this country, defendant Trump's opponent, Vice President Harris, made the following statement. Let's remember, this is the same individual, Trump, who took out a full page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent. The Central Park Five took out a full page ad calling for their execution, and he did that. So this ain't nothing new with Trump. I don't know why everybody's saying that, but this ain't nothing new. VP Harris' comment came as a part of a longer answer relating to race and politics. Defendant Trump responded, they come up with things like what she just said, going back many, many years when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted, they said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, unalived the person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. Defendant Trump's statement came as a part of a longer response to VP Harris' comments. A true and correct video recording of the debate is available in the following link. Now, we ain't gonna watch that, but this is what he said. Now, the portion that of the debate, let me see if I could do this. I was like, baby, we going on a trip in our favorite rocket ship. I had kids, so The little Einstein stuck with me. Um, let's see. Tab. All right, so we are going to listen here.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up. Lindsay?
Mhm. Mhm. Y'all heard that right. This ain't nothing new with Trump. He didn't even want to rent to black and Latinos back in the day. What has changed? But the year. Defendant Trump's statements were of or concerning plaintiffs collectively known as the Central Park Five. Defendant Trump's statements were false and defamatory in numerous respects. Plaintiffs never pled guilty to the Central Park assaults. Plaintiffs all pled not guilty and maintained their innocence throughout their trial and incarceration, as well as after they were released from prison. None of the victims, none of the victims of the Central Park assaults were unalived. Michael Bloomberg, referenced in Mr. Trump's remarks, would not become mayor of New York until 2002. The mayor at the time of the Central Park assaults was Ed Cush. Mayor Cush did not agree with Donald Trump's statements regarding the assaults. In fact, in 1989 advertisement, defendant Trump acknowledged Mayor Cush has stated that hate and rancor should be removed from our hearts. I do not think so. In response to Mr. Trump's advertisement, Mayor Cooch also quoted as saying, "Nobody I know of in Western society believes that under any circumstances would you ever impose the death penalty on juveniles." Further, during a 1989 interview discussing the Central Park Five, Mayor Coach carefully noted, "We always have to say alleged because that's the requirement." So Trump does not care what comes out of his mouth, to be honest. That's why I don't know if a lot of people watch these debates now, but they have to do a lot of fact checking, because what happens is people will make up stuff, right? And other people, and I'm just going to say it, that lack common sense, run with it. They won't do their own due diligence to research the matter, to formulate their own opinion, or to even see if it is facts. Somebody can say something, and we see this on YouTube and Instagram, on social media. Somebody says something with no receipts and are entirely wrong, and people still believe it. Now, here, if Trump was to, did his research, he would have known that they pled not guilty and maintained their innocence through trial and when they were incarcerated. If he did his research, he would have known that none of the victims were unalived. You can't go out there putting false claims on somebody to make people look bad. You need to be sued at this point. And I wish more people would come out and sue other people because it's ridiculous at this point. Defendant Trump, where am I at? All right, so Defendant Trump also omitted key facts, further rendering his statements false, misleading, and defamatory. These include, among other things, the fact that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office later acknowledged that the teen's confessions were unreliable and conflicted with the objective evidence, that four of the five were acquitted of attempted unaliving, that all five men's convictions were later vacated, that the perpetrator, the true perpetrator, Matias Reyes, confessed, that the DNA evidence confirmed that Reyes was the true perpetrator, and that the city of New York ultimately agreed to pay $41 million for its conduct towards plaintiffs. Defendant Trump's statements of or concerning plaintiffs on September 10, 2024 were made negligently, with knowledge of their falsity, and or with reckless disregard for their falsity. Once again, he knows this. I'm pretty sure he's not dumb, or maybe he is. But it's all about, you can easily go to a court docket and you can review it and you can read. Defendant Trump's false and insulting statements about plaintiffs were defamation per se, in that they ascribed to plaintiffs the commission of criminal offenses, including offenses for which plaintiffs have never been charged or accused, offenses for which they were acquitted at trial, and offenses for which they were conclusively exonerated and their convictions vacated. Defendant Trump's statements about plaintiffs were also defamation per se because the Central Park assault involved grape, And thus, by ascribing the commission of the assaults to the plaintiffs, defendant Trump was also ascribing to plaintiffs serious s well those type of misconducts. Defendant Trump's conduct at the September 10th debate was extreme and outrageous, and it was intended to cause severe emotional distress to plaintiffs. Plaintiff Salam attended the September 10th debate in person and was in the room when defendant Trump made his false and defamatory statements. Oh, wow. After the debate, defendant Trump passed through the post debate spin room, fielding questions from attendees. As defendant Trump approached plaintiff Salam, other attendees asked defendant Trump, "Will you apologize to the exonerated five? And, sir, what do you say to a member of the Central Park Five, sir?" When defendant Trump did not respond, plaintiff Salam said, "President Trump, I'm Yusuf Salam, one of the exonerated five. How are you doing?" Defendant Trump responded, "Ah, you're on my side then." Plaintiff Salam then said, "No, no, no, I'm not on your side." Defendant Trump proceeded to wave his hand at plaintiff Salam, smile, and walk away. Boy, I did not know all this. I'm reading this for the first time, y'all, just like you all are. Plaintiff Salam was attempting to politely dialogue with defendant Trump about the false and defamatory statements that defendant Trump had made about plaintiffs less than an hour earlier, but defendant Trump refused to engage with him in dialogue. A recording of the exchange can be accessed at the following link. I love petitions like these, y'all. Oh, wait, hold up. Ooh. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna share my screen, everybody. I'm gonna share my screen. Give me a second. That right there, I honestly don't even know what to say about that. That's interesting. Let's
Will you apologize to the exonerated five?
What do you say to a member of the Central Park Five, sir?
Everyone talking about the cats, the dogs, the migrants.
No, but that's a true story.
President Trump, I'm Yusuf Salam, one of the exonerated five. How you doing? I'm Yusuf Salam, one of the exonerated five.
You're on my side.
No, I'm not on your side.
Will you apologize?
mm, y'all heard that? Now, why would he be on your side and you just made your comments the way that you did? I'm confused. That does not make sense to me. That really doesn't make sense to me. All right. Defendant Trump's pattern of wrongful conduct towards plaintiff. Defendant Trump's conduct at the September 10th debate was part of a continuing pattern of extreme and outrageous conduct towards plaintiff stretching back decades. Defendant Trump has previously made numerous public statements demonstrating that he is familiar with the Central Park assaults, the criminal case, the trials, the exoneration, and the settlement with the city, and that he therefore knew that the statements he made on September 10, 2024 were false and misleading. Like his statements at the September 10th debate, many of the defendant's past statements are themselves false, defamatory, and part of a continuing pattern of extreme and outrageous conduct directed at plaintiffs. By defendant Trump's own admission, his conduct toward plaintiffs is born out of his personal animus and an intent to make the men suffer. Mm. As defendant Trump stated in his 1989 advertisement, "I want to hate these muggers and unalivers. They should be forced to suffer. I want to hate these unalivers and I always will. I am looking to punish them. I want them to understand our anger. I want them to be afraid. On April 24th, 2013, defendant Trump tweeted his impressions of the documentary film about the Central Park Five or Exonerated Five, in which he described a one sided piece of garbage that didn't explain the horrific, sick crimes of these men while in the park. Sick. Defendant Trump was referring to a 2012 film by documentarian Ken Burns titled The Central Park Five. The documentary describes in detail the true circumstances of the Central Park assaults, the subsequent legal proceedings, and the men's ultimate exoneration. The film explains that the Central Park Five or Exonerated Five never pled guilty and that the victims did not pass away. Given that defendant Trump has seen the film, he knew that his statements at the September 10th debate were false, misleading, and defamatory. Defendant Trump falsely stated in his April 24th, 2013 tweet about the documentary that the Central Park Five committed horrific crimes while in the park, sick. He always do the little ad libs. The statement written long after plaintiffs have been exonerated was itself false, defamatory, and part of a continuing pattern of extreme and outrage. On June 29th, 2013, a Twitter user asked defendant Trump, "How do you feel that the Central Park Five were innocent?" Donald Trump responded, "Innocent of what? How many people did they mug? Sick." Defendant Trump did not claim in this tweet that plaintiffs had pled guilty to assaulting and unaliving someone like he did at the September 10th debate because he knows that this is false. However, defendant Trump stated in his June 29th, 2013 tweet that plaintiffs were guilty of mugging. The statement was itself false, defamatory, and part of a continuing pattern of extreme and outrageous conduct. On June 21st, 2014, Donald Trump wrote an editorial in the New York Daily News regarding the civil settlements with the city of New York, in which he called a settlement a disgrace, stated that these young men do not exactly have the past of angels, and asked rhetorically, "What about the people who were brutalized that night in addition to the jogger?" Dude, what you don't get, they didn't do it. The person came forth. What? So you seen the documentary, you followed the legal proceedings, and you even you commented to the freaking settlement. So you know all these things, but yet, so you know the truth, you know the facts, but yet spewing out false claims and statements. Make it make sense. You deserve to get sued. However, defended Trump's derogatory comments and insinuations of criminality directed at plaintiffs in the editorial were themselves false, defamatory, and part of a continuing pattern of extreme and outrageous conduct. On June 18, 2019, defendant Trump was asked by a reporter, "The Central Park Five, they've been exonerated. There have been movies and videos. You came out with a full page ad saying they should be unalive, they should have the death penalty." Defendant Trump responded, "Why do you bring up that question up? Why do you bring that question up now? It's an interesting time to bring it up. You have people on both sides of that. They admitted their guilt. No, they didn't. If you look at Linda Farstein and you look at some of the prosecutors, they think that the city should have never settled that case. So we'll leave it at that. They didn't plead guilty. Defendant Trump did not claim in his response to the reporter that plaintiffs had pled guilty to assaulting and killing, unaliving someone like he did September 10th debate because he knows that is false. However, the clear implication of defendant Trump's statement was that Linda Fairstein, a prosecutor on the Central Park assault case, continues to believe that plaintiffs were rightfully convicted of assaulting and raping Miss Millie. In fact, while Miss Fairstein has made some negative comments about plaintiff, she nevertheless wrote in the Wall Street Journal editorial on June 10th, 2019, less than 2 weeks before Donald Trump's statement. Mr. Reyes' confessions, DNA match, and claimed that he acted alone required that the grape charges against the five be vacated. I agreed with that decision and still do. So, here you go. She said because there's a confession and that there is a DNA match, and this man said he acted alone, those charges should be vacated against those five young men. She agreed, and she still does. He tries to bring in other people to validate his statements. Defendant Trump also omitted the fact that Manhattan DA Robert Morgenthau and Chief of the Trial Division Nancy Ryan, who were responsible for overseeing the prosecution, formally recommended that all charges against plaintiffs be vacated and the indictments dismissed. This further renders defendant Trump's June 18, 2019 statement regarding the views of prosecutors on the case false and misleading. So pretty much he says all of these people name, but they have gave a completely different statement than what he is insinuating. Defendant Trump's false and misleading statements to reporters on June 18, 2019 were part of a continuing pattern of extreme and outrageous conduct towards plaintiff. Plaintiffs suffered harm, including severe emotional distress and reputational damage, as a direct result of defendant Trump's false and defamatory statements at the September 10th debate, as well as his continuing pattern of extreme and outrageous conduct. At this point, I believe that this man does not care. He's just going to keep saying it. He does not care. He doesn't care. But hey, if he don't care, I'll file that lawsuit. I surely will. Count one, defamation. We all heard the statements that he has said, the statements, the innuendos, the implications, all of that. All of that is defamatory statements. They were false. And he knew that they were false. False light, count two. He knew that the statements were false and acted in a reckless disregard to the falsity of his statements and the false light in which they would place plaintiffs. And it will. Like, these men have been exonerated. All charges have been vacated. Why continue to put them in a false light by saying these false comments and making these false claims and statements? Emotional distress. Count three, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Plaintiffs respectfully request that the court award plaintiff compensatory and punitive damages in the amount to be determined at trial, along with pre and post judgment interest costs and such other reliefs as the court deems just and proper. So here you can't put a number on it. This is going to be in the hands of the jury. As you can see, they did request for a jury trial, and this was filed in federal court. Mhm. So I want to. Oh man. Um. Oh yeah, the exhibits. Okay, if you guys give me a second, I'm going to pull up the advertisement that Trump uh ran back in 1989. I was How old was I? 89, I was born. I was 7. I was 7 years old in 89. All right. So Mr. Donald Trump. So what do you guys think about this? As I stated before, this internet is getting a little too free, specifically social media, where people want to put out false claims and think that there's not going to be any consequences, and even if somebody do decide to um file a suit, stuff is going to come out. Like it's going to come out whether it's true or not. If it's false, then you're going to have documentation showing that it's false. If it's true, then you're going to have documentation showing that it's true. So you just have to be very, very careful of the information that you're putting out on these streets, because not everybody, one, is going to do their due diligence and ensure that the information that they're getting is facts. They're just not going to do it. Why? I honestly have no clue. I have no clue as to why people would rather run with false information, fake news, than actually, speaking and spreading the truth. Is really getting to be tiring. I wish the whole internet just disappear. Okay, so I have a copy of that advertisement. They actually attached that as Exhibit A, so we can see what this man put out. Now, mind you, this is 89. This is 89. I'm gonna make it bigger. So he been like this. Bring back the death penalty. Bring back our police. Ooh, I'm gonna go ahead and read. I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this so we can see what type, what headspace Trump was in 89, in the 80s, early 90s. What has happened to our city over the past 10 years? What has happened to law and order, to the neighborhood cop we all trusted to safeguard our homes and families? The cop who had the power under the law to help us in times of danger, keep us safe from those who would prey on innocent lives to fulfill some distorted and inner need. What has happened to the respect of authority, the fear of retribution by the court, society, and the police for those who break the law, who wantonly trespass on the rights of others? What has happened in the complete breakdown of life as we knew it? Many New York families, white, black, Hispanic, and Asian, have had to give up the pleasure of leisurely strolling in the park at dusk, the Saturday visit to the playground with their families, the bike ride at dawn, or just sitting on their stoops, giving them up as hostages to a world ruled by the laws of the streets as roving bands of route criminals roam our neighborhoods, dispensing their own vicious brand of twisted hatred on whomever they encountered. At what point did we cross the line from the fine of noble pursuit of genuine civil liberties to the reckless and dangerously permissive atmosphere which allows criminals of every age to beat and grape a helpless woman and then laugh at her family's anguish? And why do they laugh? They laugh because they know that soon, very soon, they'll be returned to the streets to grape and maim and unalive once again, and yet face no great personal risk to themselves. Mayor Koch has stated that the hate and rancor should be removed from our hearts. I do not think so. I want to hate these muggers and unalivers. They should be forced to suffer, and when they unalive, they should be executed for their crimes. They must serve as examples so that others will think long and hard before committing a crime or an act of violence. Yes, Mayor Coach, I want to hate these unalivers, and I always will. I'm not looking to psychoanalyze or understand them. I'm looking to punish them. If the punishment is strong, the attacks on innocent people will stop. I recently watched a newscast trying to explain the anger in these young men. I no longer want to understand their anger. I want them to understand our anger. I want them to be afraid. Mind y'all, these are 14 and 16-year-olds. How can our great society tolerate the continued brutalization of its citizens by crazed misfits? Criminals must be told their civil liberties end when an attack on our safety begins. When I was young, I sat in a diner with my father and witnessed two young bullies cursing and threatening a very frightened waitress. Two cops rushed in, lifted up the thugs, and threw them out the door, warning them never to cause trouble again. I miss the feeling of security New York's finest once gave to the citizens of this city. Let our politicians give back our police departments power to keep us safe. Unshackle them from the constant chant of police brutality, which every petty criminal hurls immediately at an officer who has just risked his or her life to save another's. We must cease our continuous pandering to the criminal population of the city. Give New York back to the citizens who have earned the right to be New Yorkers. Send a message loud and clear to those who would unalive our citizens and terrorize New York. Bring back the death penalty and bring back our police. Donald Day J. Trump. And this was what? Daily News, Monday, May 1st, 1989. Mm, mm. I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. Um, one, I am, I'm into politics. So when I seen this lawsuit, I was like, I have to talk about this one. Um, but it kind of gives you, a point of view of the exonerated five. It gives you a view of Trump in the 80s, early 90s. This I don't even know what to say. It's like he's never based anything off of facts. It doesn't even matter if, he knows. So he knows the truth. He just rather ramble and get people hype and started and bothered and all this. So, what do you guys think about this? Like, honestly, this is something that I take politics very passionately. But when we talk about putting out false claims on someone, um, that's really deep. Like these men were exonerated. They spent 2 decades incarcerated, but they maintain their innocence. So to have and not just anybody, this is Donald Trump. This is a presidential candidate. This is what, once was a billionaire. This Donald J. Trump is who he is. So to sit here and continuously from the 80s all the way till now continue to spew out false information, it is just not right. So I am very glad that these men decided to, not go back and forth on social media. They did what they needed to do. Let's get them where it hurts. And they have all of their receipts. What do you guys think about this? Tell me in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until then, you guys have a blessed night, and I'm out. Bye.